Welcome, part 2 of the It's a Troll 4-foot snake tournament. So, people are migrating over from part 1 of this episode, and the reason it's been divided in two, the high-res pictures captured by my phone are just too damn powerful for the internet to handle in one stream, apparently. So the way I do it, I load all the images into a slideshow inside the streaming software, and apparently the pictures are just too huge and that many cannot be held inside a single slideshow. Well, there you go. However, that does divide us nicely into the two separate days. So let's get rid of the thumbnail, and you can see here that we're on to game number 4. So if you haven't watched episode 1 yet, you really should not be here yet, so you should go back and watch episode 1 all the way through with those 3 games, because I'm about to spoil the results of them any moment. So if you don't want to have the results of the previous 3 games spoiled, you should leave now and watch that video. If you've already watched it, then well done and welcome to this continuing video. Okay, goblins. Who have I got this time in round 4? Dwarves. And what is the scenario, I hear you ask? Well, it is Salt the Earth. So that is similar to Pillage, where you just have to sit on the tokens, sit on the objectives at the end of the game. However, the twist is that you can destroy any that you control at the end of your turn. So, what kind of battle plan would I have for a game like this? Well, first of all, I don't want to go backwards with my army, because obviously it's all head straight forward and kill you kind of stuff. So I'm not going to leave any of the objectives on my side of the table alive. I'm going to burn all of them to dust. That's the number one thing. The other thing is, of course, rush across the battlefield, kill the enemy. You can tell from the terrain layout here, we've got a big piece of impassable terrain there. Got another volcano here. And I'm using that to kind of ignore that part of the battlefield as usual. If you look at where the tokens are, there's one here, one here, one here, one here, one here, and there's one down here as well. They're mostly around the middle though, so if I can just get to the middle and fight there, it's a dwarf army that doesn't have that much shooting in it, so I wouldn't be surprised if we can get some middle of the battlefield action going on. Then I'm quite confident that I can come out on top. The enemy does have a lot more small, fast, chaff-like units than I do, so I don't want to leave any objectives around at the back because the enemy will be able to get to them far more easily than I can, so I'm just going to scorch them all. Any that I'm controlling on my way up the battlefield, I'm just going to get rid of them if I don't think I can get back to them, and then just try and claim the ones further forward. So what does my opponent's army actually is something of a mystery, because in this mega scandal my opponent did not have any printouts of his army list. Bum bum bum! Which of course I'm sure got him knocked down numerous sportsmanship points for not having a printout. So if you don't own a printer, shame on you. So I can tell you from memory what's in it though. You can look at my deployment. So we're starting on my right flank, which isn't really a flank at all because I've got it all condensed in the middle. Trolls, Bruiser, Giant Trolls, Giant Trolls, Troll Bruiser, War Trombones, King, Kung Fu Faulkes, the special living legend hero. If any of this is weird and unfamiliar to you, it's probably because you haven't watched the part 1 of this tournament report, so you should go and do that first. War Trombone, Rabble, Trolls, Trolls. So any that have started in the difficult terrain, I usually try and start war machines in the difficult terrain if it's blocking my deployment area, because they can't move at the double anyway, so it doesn't worry them, as long as it's not an obstacle and they're just not allowed to move over it. Giants, if they're going to charge over it, but they can't go out the double because it's only Strider they have, not Caterpillar. So the Caterpillar unit is deployed in here because they can just ignore that difficult terrain. And the other ones have got pretty much open ground. My opponent has Brock Riders, Mastiff Hunting Packs ×2. There are regiments of Iron Clad, which are the worse, the inferior kind of dwarf infantry regiments. There is a Greater Earth Elemental. There's a horde of shield breakers, which are the big... two hordes of shield breakers, in fact, which are the big crushing strength dwarf unit. They're free dwarves, so they don't all have headstrong, which is nice. There's a king on large beast. There is another hero there. Can't remember exactly what he is. And there's another unit of ironclad, I believe. And then over here, there is a Brocklord. There is a... could be a king with the wings of honey maze there. Something like that. And then there is the flying Jan special character with the exploding attacks once per game, who hasn't done that well against me so far in any of the previous games. So, there's an objective there. These four are definitely within striking distance. That's an area I would like to be in. There's also one there. So if I can just fight in this area here, that would be nice. I don't want to have to go all the way over there and worry about that one. And the enemy have got cheap expendable units, they can sit on them. So if I could draw out their cheap expendable units, and if I can set up in a really threatening way, they might want to use those cheap expendable units to prevent me getting multi-charges. And if they're using them for that job, it means they're not going to objective hop later in the game and just sit there unopposed. We'll have to see though. So there's one here that I'm going to immediately scorch. You can't get rid of the middle one though. Turn 1 and I go first. It's not a massive advance on this side because I want to stay there and get rid of that objective, which you can see I have done. So that's gone because I'm not going to come back here, and my opponent has some fast, cheap units that could get behind and just sit on them for the rest of the game. Everyone else has gone up. Always nice to get the first turn against flyers because you can just push up without worrying about them staring at your flank yet and make up some good ground without worrying about that. Getting up to the woods. Can't go into the woods with all these units yet though because they didn't have enough movement. So using it as a bit of a screen kind of, either side could be. Bit of shooting damage from lightning bolt onto the horde. That's it. Turn 1 for the dwarves. So the flyers and the little fast hero wing of the enemy army move up and look down my flank, as flyers tend to do. And over on this side, the Brocks and the Mastiff packs are just staring threateningly from a distance. They obviously have to be hesitant. They don't just want to go in and kill Rabble and then get murdered by everything. Now, one thing that was notable to me about this game is that my opponent was spending a very long time measuring things out very accurately, working out all his angles. I think he spent about 10 minutes on deployment and about 20 minutes on turn 1. So that should tell you something. So when I saw that he was playing this very methodical, precise style, that made me ponder that if I don't engage immediately, and if I turn it into kind of a positioning match that I'm doing faster than he is, then he could end up timing out, if he is being so precise. On the other hand, my army is one that likes to get stuck in. So a bit of a conundrum deciding which way to go with that. But any time that you can make your opponent perform moves that are going to take a long time, if there's a chance of them timing out, why not go for it? It's the rules of the tournament. And if your opponent has 10 seconds left, for instance, and you turn round one of your units, so they have to recharge you to kill you, and they have to roll 120 dice in 10 seconds, which they're not going to do, then it's a perfectly viable strategy. They should have saved more of their time earlier. So you can see these fancy Kings of War sticks, which I think are very handy. I might have to get some orange ones. So not much of an advance, but it was very precisely measured, as you can see here. There is going to be a bit more movement before the end. So there you go, not too fast, but kind of encircling, like the game I had earlier against the Kingdoms of Men. Turn 2 for me. So I'm getting rid of this objective. This is the one on my left, because I don't care about this side at all. It's over here. I got rid of that objective there. So I'm not going to win that side. The Rabble is just here to delay the enemy fast units from coming in, and I want to take them out of the game because they're giving a speed and chaff advantage. They can prevent multi-charges, they can keep me at arm's length with their speed, and they can cover an advance of the slower units. So if I can keep them all over there with the Rabble, now they haven't even got an objective here to go after, with trolls as backup, just one horde, because there is some meat there. I don't want them punching through the Rabble too fast and then steaming in. They need a little bit of support. The trombones within striking distance as well. Those trombones have moved up this way. So the positioning of these units here, very important. So the king on Large Beast, he is in the flank of the trolls. They've turned so that they've got Jan the Flyer in their front. This guy is in their flank, but does not have room to touch the corner and close the door, as they say, in that spot, because the Bruiser is there. So we had to check this to make sure it was the correct rule as well, because obviously it was important. And it is the case that if you charge, you have to be able to close the door on the spot that you touch. You can't just touch the corner and then pick up the unit and put it over there. You can pick the unit up and put it somewhere else if, for example, you're multi-charging and it's going to end up in a different spot. But if you're just charging in on your own like that, the point you touch has to be where you close up, as it were. Because the Bruiser's there, he can't do that. I've offered the Bruiser and the Giant's flanks to Jan, because I don't think that's much of a worry. I think she might kill the Bruiser, but then that's the enemy's most powerful flying thing, just right in there in the middle of my army, ready to get War Trombone to death. So that would take away that worry for the rest of the game, and I wouldn't have to guard my flanks again. Goes into the Giant, not going to kill that. Front of the Trolls, not going to kill that. So I think this is the best I can do there, but the speed on this side comes from the Large Beast and from these three. But two of them are quite short, actually. They don't have very good height, so they can't see over the hill. So they can't see to my Trombones or the Bruiser there. So anyone that comes onto the hill can be seen by me, though. The Wiz just chilling out there, ready to zap lightning bolts through there. I've got Faulkes in the middle, and I was denying either the throwing Mastiffs that some of these units have, or the... is it a fireball that the Earth Elemental has? Some kind of ability to shoot. So Faulkes was doing that to deny them the ability to attack any of the units nearby. And turn 2 for the Dwarves. So because the I think it's a fireball, couldn't be used, the Elemental decided just to steam into the Trolls and get straight into combat, which is fine by me. And the Brocks are playing a bit of a patient game here, which again is fine, because that's my plan. I just want to hold them up as many turns as possible so they can't threaten the flanks of my main battle line. And one of them is going to have to stay there and guard that objective for the whole game anyway. So I'm just going to turn around, not give them any annoying flanks. Might have to kill that unit to stop them flanking me, maybe. Because as part of a combo with multiple other units, it could be enough to kill them. So I would like them to die. Jan decides to charge into the Giant, and the Large Beast decides to go into the front of the Giant. So with all those attacks, they've got a chance. If they don't kill the Giant, they're in a pretty bad spot though. And these two decide to go into the Trolls, who are partly on the hill. So that's the Wings of Honey Maze character and the Berserker Lord. And I think it's a Berserker Lord. Do you have Berserkers in Free Dwarves, or is it a different kind of dwarf on a Badger? Someone will let me know. Because as I said, I don't have a copy of this player's army list, because he didn't have any. Disgraceful. So you can see that... Let's just go back there. So on my last turn, when I advanced up, let's just go back to before I was charged by everything. So with my advancing, I didn't talk too much about this area, did I? So I kind of skimmed over that. So all these units, apart from the Bruiser, are looking through the woods now. So they can all see to the other side, to the enemy units. So they are kind of forced to engage. Obviously I've stayed out of the various flanks that would be terrible. Haven't given this guy a flank on anyone. Not the Golem. And I'm in charge range, so I can charge the Dwarves next time. Because if you look at these hordes, they're so wide and they're not angled towards each other at this point. So if I were to charge a Giant into the middle of them, I don't think the other horde can actually see the Giant that's fighting them. And I'm threatening now because I'm looking through the woods. That's the point I wanted to make there. So the enemy have charged in, and they've actually got this unit in an interesting position here, because I could charge that with multiple units now. And this unit definitely won't be able to see them, because they're further forward. So, what I'm planning to do next time is send this giant, and I think these trolls are actually in range of that unit as well. With their 12-inch charge, I think that's the unit that I'm going to send in there. So those two into that unit. Because with the trolls having a slightly less fat base than the giant as well, that's even less chance of them being seen by that unit. And I'm confident the elemental isn't going to kill those trolls in one go. And we'll see what I'm going to do with Faulkes as well next time. So let's see what damage they actually do. So the Rabble takes some damage from throwing Mastiffs. The Giant takes some damage from throwing Mastiffs as well. They all decide to go off this time. These trolls become wavered as a result of these two individuals' attacks, but they are in range of the Headstrong aura, I think. Yeah, there's the king right there. The Giant only takes a tiny amount of damage. I'm not sure if that's all their attacks already done, but it's only on 2 at the moment. These trolls barely scratched by the elemental. So yeah, that was a disaster of an attack. It's just a really poor roll from Jan in the flank. So only 2 damage on that giant, and it's an absolute disaster for the dwarves there. Turn 3 for the goblins. So the giant and the trolls charge that horde there, as I said, and I think actually the way I positioned them, because they don't move to the centre, so I think these trolls can be seen with their flank now from that unit, because they slide along further. But if I'd sent in the trolls on their own, I think they would have had less chance. Actually, I don't know. I'd have to get some bases out and start measuring it. Because obviously they're wider, so yeah, without the 90-degree, not even 90-degree, without the arc of sight thing on the front there, then it's difficult to say whether the trolls going in on their own or the giant would be a better choice there. But I think those two can potentially kill that unit, and I'm not going to leave them totally going in on their own. That Mastiff unit that I said I wanted to kill, I charged them with the trolls, and then pivoted them so they can flank charge me with those ironclad if they want, because they're going to be hindered and they're not a very good fighting unit. So these trolls into the elemental, I think it's not actually side on, that's just because it would fit that way. So look at that. So loads of damage onto that unit, and that too, where is it? That is my tournament reroll, because I needed to get 3 on that dice on the nerve roll to kill this unit, and I rolled a 2 the first time, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to use my tournament reroll because it's a 2 out of 3 chance to kill this unit, which will probably save my bacon as well, because I can turn round with these units and not be charged in the flank by them. But I rolled a 2 again. So tournament reroll wasted there. In some of my previous games I didn't even use the tournament reroll because there was just never a nerve roll where it was on a knife edge enough to warrant using it. So I was just saving it for the right moment that never came. So lots of damage on that unit though, and with this list, whenever something's heavily damaged, it's going to die because I've got trombones and the lightning bolt, so they're not going to survive the game. It'd be a miracle if they did. My trolls did not pass their headstrong roll either, so they just had to chill out there. The Bruiser and the Giant went into the large beast and did some wounds. Faulkes charged into this regiment of ironclad there, and he missed with both his attacks. He was hindered going through the woods though. So that was just to hold them up. This unit I didn't worry about too much because I was confident I would kill them, sadly. Turn 3. So, the charge I was most worried about, or most not worried about, shall we say, was these guys into the flank of the trolls. The Brocks might be a little bit scarier, but again it's hindered, so I don't think it's going to be that bad. The other Brocks and the Ironclad into the Rabble that are wounded already, so maybe they'll grind me down eventually. And the Berserker, not the Berserker, the Elemental is... Which way is it actually looking now? It's hard to tell. I think that's the face. I think it is facing this way still to fight them. And they actually get flanked by this horde, which I thought was very interesting. Because this one was an obvious choice. They were right there, right next to them. This one's further away, and I believe it's a hindered charge as well. So, interesting. I'd be interested to hear what the reasoning was that that unit was chosen over that one. Maybe because these two are obviously going to kill that unit next turn and there's nothing else they can attack. I don't know. Maybe this unit was deemed to be more dangerous because of their positioning. And over here, the large beast wounds the Bruiser a little bit. The Rabble takes some damage from that combat. The Trolls don't take much in the flank from the Brox, so we'll hope to kill them on the countercharge. The Giant is dead as a result of, against the odds, failing to kill that unit last turn. And they go backwards, but not enough to get into the difficult terrain, so the Trolls will definitely finish them next turn. And the unit here is dead as well, as a result of that flank charge. Faulkes takes a bit of damage, so he's going to not have his Thunderous Charge next turn. This Giant looks like... Is that actually countercharging the Giant rather than the Bruiser? It's hard to tell which way some of these models are facing, actually. I think the face is there, so it's looking this way. So I think the Giant was attacked. These Trolls get killed by the two heroes. This one's got Blade of the Beast Slayer, I think, actually. So that's actually really good against my list. And there's how it's looking. So quite spread out at the moment. Turn 4 for me. So the Rabble are going back into the Brox. Because not only have they probably got more danger, more threat presence, they're also faster, which in this scenario means they're less likely to be stuck out in the middle of nowhere, not near an objective, unlike this unit, who could get stuck somewhere, nowhere near an objective. Trolls kill the Brox on the countercharge and turn that way. The Trolls kill the Horde at the second attempt when they should have killed it last time and turned this way. I actually totally forgot there was an objective in this crater, by the way. Because I'm not saying I would have necessarily sent the Trolls over there to sit on it, but because it's in the crater, it was camouflaged and I just didn't see it for the entire game. So I had no idea there was an objective there. So if you think any of my decisions, scenario-wise, were flawed, maybe that's part of the reasoning. I think that my Trombones were shooting at this thing, possibly this turn. I'll know more about that in a second. So there's an objective here. Killed off the King on Large Beast, though, with the Giant and the Bruiser. Oh, the Trombones were trying to take out this Horde. That's right. So look at that. Decent number of wounds already. And the King with the bow was shooting them as well. So that unit's probably not going to make it out the game. Looking at that, there are 9 wounds already and they're surrounded by death. And Harambe the Bruiser went for the Wings of Honeymaze character. Looking back, maybe should have gone for this one with the Blade of the Beast Slayer, because if I killed that one sooner, that was more of a threat to my army than this one. So, decent round. Turn 4 for the Dwarves. So, double into the Rabble again. Elemental into the Trolls there. The Horde into the Trolls. The Wounded Horde finally remembers to take their wounds with them. 2 heroes into the Giant, who was quite happy to turn both these heroes are quite happy to turn their backs on the enemy here because they're both individuals, so they're not going to be multiplying when they charge the rear, and that's where all the action is down there. And they're not attacking the Trombones either yet, which is nice. So the Rabble are dead. Super dead. These Trolls are not dead. These Trolls are not dead. And the Giant is not dead. Faulkes is not dead. Actually, the Giant does take more wounds. But is not killed. Heavily wounded, but not dead yet. So doing very well there, the Giant. Let's see, was that a double 1? I don't know if it's quite double 1 tap, but it may well have been. Turn 5. So, Trolls back in there. In here, I think the Horde was brutalised there. The Giant trying to kill off that character. And still can't chew through this monstrosity. So that's really difficult to shift. And that's how it's looking at the end of that turn. So I've got quite a lot of stuff left alive, but the objectives. So these Mastiffs are just sitting on an objective, so it's easy to forget that one exists. There is an objective here. There's one here. there's one in the crater that I've still completely forgotten about. Because if I knew that one existed, the Bruiser would be a perfect candidate to just start heading over there. There's one here as well. That Faulkes was hoping to clear this unit off, because they're sitting right on it. And the Bruiser's now decided to head over there to help next turn. Because he's failed with all his attacks mostly. He's only hit in one round, I think. There's one down here as well, an objective, and obviously my trombones can't hold it. So I may regret not knowing that objective exists. Turn 5 for the dwarves. So mega charge onto the trolls, who I thought should have killed this thing last time, to be honest, but didn't do very well. And the Beast Slayer attacks Harambe, thinking, actually, I need that unit of dwarves to live because they're on an objective, so can't afford Harambe to charge them. Probably a good idea, and this may be enough to finish off the giant because it's almost dead anyway. And Bane chanted as well. Troll's dead. So everything turns to face this lovely mess here. Faulkes dead. He really failed this game, sadly. And Harambe's wavered. So mega attack there from the character with the Blade of the Beast Slayer. So it's not looking good for me in scenario terms. The giant's also dead, so I don't have that objective. And so objectives. Obviously, I don't know that one exists, so I'm not going to go for it. The Bruiser can theoretically get to this one. These trolls probably want to try and get that one. So my plan is, let me show you, on my turn. So the Bruiser charges into this unit. The trolls charge into the elemental, which is there. So if I had remembered that existed, I would have charged the trolls in, because the Brocks are facing the wrong way. I think the trolls are more unit strength than that regiment of dwarves. So if I charged in there, overran, and they were contesting that objective at the end, the trolls would win it. The Bruiser could potentially get to this objective and then get charged by Brocks into difficult terrain, so it's not guaranteed, it's unwounded. And yeah, I could potentially even trombone off this unit. This Bruiser is obviously a bit stuck, so that's an objective being claimed there, and that one is obviously going to the enemy. So I'm running out of units that can actually do anything with objectives. I've only got 3, and one of them's definitely not going to get one. My opponent has more, and the more little units that can just sit out on the edge and not participate in the game is paying off here. Turn 6 for the dwarves. No, for the goblins. So the elemental is dead. Bruiser in there. And next turn the Bruiser, if there's a turn 7, can go for the other objective. The trombones try and do something. I don't think they kill anyone this time, or do they? Was there anything there? I think they actually might have killed the Wings of Honeymay's character, which isn't that important really. Turn 6 for the dwarves. So dwarves, the Ironclad countercharge the Bruiser. A little bit of damage. And Harambe the Bruiser is dead, so the enemy are definitely going to have that objective. And that's how it's looking at the end of that turn. So the Brocks went onto that objective, which I forgot existed. And so what I could have done potentially with this Bruiser is sent it up there, 3 inches away from the objectives, stopping the Brocks getting within 3 inches of it and making them kill the Bruiser to overrun onto it to have any chance of taking it. But I forgot it was there, couldn't see it because it was camouflaged, so just ignored it and was playing for this one. And hoping for turn 7 so the Bruiser could run onto that one, which still wouldn't really help me because my opponent has 1, 2, 3. But I thought I would have a good chance of guaranteeing a draw because, again, forgot that one existed. So that's how it looks. And I do ultimately trombone off that unit as well. And the game is going to end like that. So it's a win for the dwarves, but they have lost way more. Is it way more? Let's have a look. It's more, but it's not way more. So I got a large amount of kill points. I got more kill points than I got in my previous 2 wins in this loss. The only things left are the Mastiffs on an objective, the Brocks on an objective, the Ironclad on an objective, a hero, and another hero, and that's it. All these ones up here are dead. I've got trolls, all my trombones, the Wiz, a Bruiser, and the King still alive. So you can see the Bruiser did get to that objective. So again, I thought I was having a good chance at playing for a draw there, but alas, camouflaged objective. So make sure you're always keeping track of where the objectives are, and maybe even during your opponent's turn, when you're not doing anything else, just count them all up every now and then. Make sure you know where every single one of them is. A good tip there, don't lose sight of them. So that's a 1 loss and 3 wins so far, but it's a loss that got me a lot of points though. So it's a loss with 11 points. So if we compare that to the losses my opponents had in the previous 3 games of mine, one of them was 8, one of them was 8, and then one was 9. So an 11 point loss, still a decent number of points. So hopefully, going into the last round, on table 3, if I can get a big win, that should be enough to get a podium place, which is always my goal, just building up the trophy collection. So on to round 5, and this time, some would say I'm against myself, because it's an Abyssal Dwarf army that resembles my Abyssal Dwarf army. Very similar paint scheme, almost identical basing scheme, and the player in question did actually say that he's watched a lot of my videos and was somewhat inspired by my army. However, the list is quite different to the kind of thing I take. There are some differences. There are a few similarities though, which we'll get to. So, I have a copy of this list here somewhere. Let's see. There we go. So, this scenario is control. So the 6 table sections, 6 squares, and whoever controls more of them at the end is the winner. And you get 2 points if you're controlling your enemy's central square. So it's not too complicated maths wise. Those are the corners of the squares there. We've put 2 tokens there. So during the game we could figure out exactly where the table sections were and which units were in which one. And the terrain setup, it's the same table as the last game, but the terrain's obviously set up a little bit differently. So, got some impassable there and there, hill there, some woods in the middle. I put this wall straight in the middle there, because obviously in this event the players were picking the terrain locations. I put a wall directly in the middle because I thought, I've got lots of Strider in my army. My opponent probably doesn't. So, why not just stick a wall in there? It's going to affect him more than me, most likely. Okay, so on to my deployment. I've got the Wiz out on this flank, and my deployment, there's nothing too crazy about it. It's just a big blob marching forward, and we only worry about the angles and protecting flanks when we actually get towards the enemy, for the most part. Just throwing everything forward fast is the plan, if I get to go first. Trombone's obviously hiding. And my opponent has this flying hero here, which is, I think this is the Living Legend Jan again. I believe it is. So, yet again facing that hero, it was very popular. Most people like to add a free flyer to their list. There is a hero there, which is a half-breed champion with the Blade of Slashing, which is a decent choice. There's a horde of grotesques. There are 2 of them actually, which we haven't seen. One of them's got the Brew of Sharpness, which is very expensive. One of them's got the Potion of the Caterpillar. Gargoyles, Lesser Obsidian Golems, both with the Charnox upgrade. 2 regiments of Immortal Guard, so that's like straight out of my army lists, really, isn't it? The Immortal Guard and the Golems. There is a hero behind there, which is an Ironcaster. And the Ironcaster has Banechant, the Conjurer's Staff, which allows 1 spell dice to be rerolled, and Surge 8, Banechant 2, and they can heal the Hellforged units. Down this end we've got more Gargoyles, the other Grotesques, the other Immortal Guard, and Wings of Honeymaze on an Overmaster, which is something I haven't taken. I normally take Susan in my lists, as you know. Basusu. And there we go, a pretty straightforward scenario to end the tournament, and feeling pretty good. I should know how Abyssal Dwarves work, but I also know how powerful they are, so I'm not going to take them lightly whatsoever. And the Abyssal Dwarves choose to go first, and you can see immediately, turn 1, straight up there, look sideways with the flyer, and instantly it puts your opponent on the back foot. Do they advance up and give you the flank straight away? Maybe. We'll see. So with it being control, I'll just give you a little overview of my battle plan. So the main area to contest is this area here, this section, because then at the end of the game you have more choice about which sections of the board you're going to jump into. If you're fighting all the way over here, this is the only table section you're going to have a chance to control. If you're fighting here, you can then maneuver your units in the last couple of turns to get them into the place they're most needed. Same if you're on this junction here. So those are the key areas, and obviously the two central areas are most important because they're worth 2 points if you can control the one belonging to your opponent. So mostly fighting in this area is the goal here. If you've got a really cheap unit that can score, like gargoyles, then what I usually like to do with them is not even engage in the fight at all, and just hide them and then jump into an unoccupied section at the end of the game and just get a victory point for it. So my goal is to force my opponent to use his gargoyles, because he's got 2 of them, which is potentially 2 victory points at the end of the game if he just decides to go into the rest of the game. What would it be? 170 points down, which is doable, but I would rather make him expend those gargoyles and not have that option later in the game. Other units that are maybe good for a bit of last turn hopping onto a different section would be things like Bruisers. Quite fast with nimble, they can just do that 1 pivot and then 12 inches. So potentially they can relocate themselves quite handily. Most things in the opposing army cannot. There's the 3 flying units, so those are the main ones. So if I can get those killed, everything else is kind of fairly slow and certainly not nimble. So turn 1. I've got things looking at me. Can I advance full speed? Do I want to? I don't want to advance full speed with troll hordes and get them one-shot by grotesques. That would be a terrible idea. So I'm going to throw something forward though. And you can see it's the Rabble. So grotesques, you can come and eat this Rabble if you want, but you're not having any of my trolls yet. Faulkes is right behind them, spreading his no-shooting aura to the units around here. It's really the Charnox, and I think that's the main thing really on the Abyssal Dwarf army. That's the thing that's going to be shooting at me the most. By the way, for anyone who's wondering why my face isn't in the corner of the screen or there's no fancy graphics on this video, it's because I've got so many high-res pictures in these 2 episodes that it grinds to a halt if I try and do anything fancy with it at all. Because previously I've only done battle reports with the pictures taken on my phone. And this is the first time I've done a tournament report, so it's 5 times as many pictures. So obviously I had to break it down and cut back on all the fancy stuff. Because the pictures are obviously much higher resolution, apparently, than my camcorder was. The camcorder is still pretty good for its zooming ability though. So on the left I haven't advanced as much, because I just don't want to get flanked by that flyer yet. And I don't want to go into range of the grotesques. There's 2 reasons not to advance there, so why just throw my lives away? Those things are very dangerous, and I'm not going to stay back the whole game, but if the enemy come forward a bit, then I'll be more likely to engage. The giant does have a speed edge on a lot of the units around there, but obviously not things like flyers and cavalry. So not being too adventurous over there. I am in the middle though. So 1 horde of trolls have gone up. I think they're out of charge range of most things though. That's why they were so bold in going forward. Turn 2 for the Abyssal Dwarfs, and they've pushed up into a nice strong line, and that is quite a terrifying sight, isn't it? Really high defense, unwaverable wall there with the Immortal Guard and the golems, and the pain comes from the sides with the grotesques at both ends. Gargoyles not getting themselves killed yet. And the Overmaster with the wings decides to charge into the Rabble, which does cover the advance of the grotesques, because I now can't charge them with the Rabble, but Faulkes is nimble, and I don't know if my opponent was aware of that, so I do have someone that can pin them down for a turn and take away their thunderous charge. And yeah, that's that for there. Over here, not much going on. There's some measuring taking place. It's a bit of a standoff. And a throwing mastiff, that looks like. Mutated throwing mastiff does some damage to Harambe the Bruiser. And gets wavered, which is not nice at all, because I'll tell you what my plan was for over here. So, I wanted to throw these trolls forward into something, I believe. And I wanted, or maybe just throw them up to this wall, so that people would be making hindered charges against them, something like that. And I could then thrust these units out and use the Bruiser to park in front of a unit or charge a unit if they're in range, just to pin them back, so there's less things attacking me. So I definitely had a plan. The Bruiser was going to do something, but I can't remember exactly what I was going to attack. So the Overmaster does 3 wounds to the Rabble, which is nothing really. Turn 2, so the Giant, okay, this is what I was going to do. The Giant's charging the Grotesques in the woods, which was obviously, my opponent wanted me to do it, because he left them in range of the Giant and nobody else. But I thought, you know what, those Grotesques, if they charge anything with their Thunderous Charge, which they have a bit of Thunderous, and I think these ones, let me see, what do they have? The Grotesques, so Proof Sharpness, Potion of the Caterpillar, I think that's the one with the Caterpillar. So they're not even going to be making hindered charge out of those woods anyway, so I'd rather just take away their Thunderous Charge by charging them first. So I think it's a result we both wanted. He wanted me to charge them, and I wanted to charge them as well. So the Giant's in there first. What I wanted to do with the Bruiser was prevent this unit, I think, from flanking the Giant. I think that was what I was looking for, but then it was wavered, so I couldn't do that. So Faulkes went into the Grotesques here and did some wounds, take away their Thunderous Charge and block them in, so I can advance. The Trolls, the Bruiser and the Rabble triple charged the Overmaster, but didn't kill it, because I was free to do that because the Grotesques were pinned down by Faulkes. And this Troll Horde has moved up, and this is kind of a sacrificial unit. They can be seen by lots of things here, but it's all going to be hindered charges, so they're going to have to really commit with multiple units there, and if they're willing to do that, there's going to be a furious counterattack incoming from various things. So let's find out. So my opponent's turn. Jan decides to flank charge the Giant in addition to the Grotesques, so Jan is now in the equation. Gargoyles land in front of the Trolls that were the backup there. So successfully getting the Gargoyles used in the game, so they're not just going to be winning the scenario in the last turn. So a small victory there. Okay, here's my opponent's plan here. Because this was going to be a hindered charge, he decided he would hop over the wall, pivot, and then surge into the flank of my Trolls without hindrance, with the Immortal Guard in the front. Let's see how that goes. So the Overmaster is going to attack the Bruiser because it's the softest touch there, I think, the easiest one to kill. So the surge coming in does make it in, and my opponent had he had to make 3 successful inches out of 8 and only got 2, so then used the spell reroll from the Conjurer's Staff and failed again, so then had to use the tournament reroll, the once per game reroll any dice special, and successfully got the surge in. So that, once the tournament reroll is gone from your opponent, it adds in a lot more spice, because you know they're not going to be able to use it on any nerve rolls later on once it's gone. So the Giant is killed there in the woods. Gargoyles just chilling out, as you'd expect. However, look at this. After using the tournament reroll to succeed with the surge, a billion wounds, and then double ones the Trolls. Wow, wow, wow. Well, what can you say about that? It was a risk, because if we go back to look at before this happened, let's go back all the way here. So these Trolls could have been triple charged in the front. Golems, Immortal Guard, Golems. All 3 of those can make hindered charges into the front. That would have presented a really solid frontage with nobody giving away any flanks. I don't think these Trolls could have seen the units over here. There may have been a potential flank for maybe the Bruiser if he could see, but it's questionable whether that could actually happen. I would mostly be having to just multi-charge fronts if they did that. The fact that they didn't want that hindrance and wanted the flank so desperately means that the failure has now probably condemned that unit to be flank charged by Harambe the Bruiser and a Giant. So I always like to consider, if the opponents move, if you can force them into doing it, then that's great. But in general, if the opponents move, the consequences for failure, if they're obscenely high, then please do it. Because double ones do happen, bad dice rolls happen, flanking a unit is not guaranteed to kill it, and you're just exposing your flank. And I don't think it was necessary to do it here. I think there was enough units making the hindered charges in the front that even if they didn't kill the trolls, they weren't giving anything up. There was no risk involved in that manoeuvre, as far as I can tell from the angles here. Nothing exciting going on there. Faulkes is dead. The Grotesques have killed him, but he did block them in for a turn, so that's okay. So what's going to happen now? These two units are going to eat the golems there. Turn 3 for me. So the trolls kill the gargoyles, the trombone is just hiding behind them. And then trombone's a single wound onto Jan. Well, the golems are certainly dead, and Harambe the Bruiser and the Giant went backwards D3 inches, because that put them out of charge range of something. I'm not sure if it was the Grotesques. You can see here that there is now no unit there. So what was on this hill? Or, let me see here. So those trolls charge in, and I think they killed the Grotesques that had just killed Faulkes. And these various shooting attacks. I don't know if I actually had anyone to shoot this turn, so they were just positioning themselves probably. But these trolls killed the Grotesques. And over here, so these trolls that had their free bonus turn, because they should have been dead last turn, charged into those golems to get out of the way, and the Bruiser and the Rabble charged into the Immortal Guard there. These trolls are just waiting as backup. So it's looking pretty healthy in the centre. I've got lots of barely or totally undamaged units, and I've killed the Grotesques in there and the golems here. So 2 of my opponent's big powerful units are dead, 2 of the 4. If you think of the Grotesques and the golems as the big powerful units, whereas I've still got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of my 6 left. This one's going to die next turn, but they got a bonus attack before they went down. Turn 4 for the Abyssal Dwarfs. So the Immortal Guard not doing much. I have 2 pictures of the turn dice there. Okay, there we go. So Immortal Guard and golems charging into that troll unit that should have been dead already, so that's good, tying up lots of units. These gargoyles are still alive. You can see a human hand there. These ones, these Immortal Guard, I think are charging at the Rabble this time. These gargoyles have landed in front of the trolls, so nice. We've got another unit of gargoyles that's going to get killed, so they're not going to win the scenario for the Abyssal Dwarfs. And it does stop me charging past them to get to any of these juicy flanks that might be available here. And I'm not sure it was necessary to sacrifice the gargoyles here. Maybe my opponent was scared of getting another double 1 and then being flanked by the trolls there. So under those circumstances, I'll say it's an okay move. In this scenario, though, I would like to keep the gargoyles alive, with it being control. Over on this side, then I don't have anything left. Jan, Grotesques, and the Half-Breed Champion are ready to come in and join the battle now. And you can see here that Grotesques and the Champion double charge the trolls there. And the trolls are dead. The Trombone's still alive behind them. And here, the troll horde there is dead now. So I am losing some units, but I've taken some down with me, and the Rabble have taken some wounds as well. Turn 4. Trombone scorches the Grotesques a bit, just making a start on them. They do have regen, but I've got enough shooting that I hope I can take them off. Lightning Bolt. wavers the half-breed champion with 1 wound. So that's pretty hilarious. And here, Immortal Guard unit attacked by Bruiser, Giant, and the Rabble in the flank. Let me just see where that unit was, just so you can see how that works. So it's this unit here. Okay, so these trolls had to move backwards to allow this unit to successfully pivot in to touch that unit in combat. It's a hindered flank, and as you can see, they don't actually kill them, because I don't think they actually added a single wound with that flank charge either. So it's not a very good round of attacks there. So now I've got flanks opened up because this was a bit of a failure. The other ones take more damage from the King and the Bruiser. And there's how that's looking. So there's a flank available for the Grotesques here on the Bruiser, once the wavered half-breed champion gets out of the way. But if that unit had died, it would have been a lot healthier. So I wanted the Rabble in that position because I wanted to block in the golems there so they can't join in on anything useful yet. And I've got these trolls as backup. I've got all my trombones and my whiz alive, so I've still got all my shooting, and I think I can start killing off units and preventing them from scoring anything. You can see I did kill the gargoyles there as well. Turn 5 for the Abyssal Dwarfs, so countercharging the Bruiser, the Immortal Guard there. Grotesques into the flank of Harambe. Immortal Guard into the Giant. The Golems into the rear of the Rabble, which is surely going to kill them. So I could lose those 2 units now, but this unit's got a lot of wounds on it, so they're going to die next turn. I can definitely kill them. These should die. I can at least double charge them, with the King maybe helping out as well. 3 units on 1 there. That might die next turn. So the enemy are running very low on scoring units. They do still have Jan, who's holding back a bit, maybe thinking about the scenario. And what's dished out here? Well, the Giant takes 4 wounds from the Immortal Guard. Harambe is dead from the Grotesques, who then pivot. And the Rabble are dead as a result of the Golems, as expected. Bruiser is fine. So, how many units have I got left that can score? 1, 2, 3, 4. My opponent has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But it's my turn next, and I'm certainly going to kill this unit, and hopefully that unit as well. That would be nice. Get them down to just 2 scoring units there, and Jan, who may not want to join in the fight because she might want to be objective hopping. And I've got all my shooting alive, so I'm going to be directing that at the Grotesques. Turn 5 for me. All the shooting on the Grotesques put them up to 11 wounds. Unless they have a really good regeneration roll next time, they are almost certainly not going to see the end of the game. Immortal Guard dead as a result of the combo charge, as I said. Immortal Guard there, dead as a result of combo charge. The Giant then pivots so that the Grotesques don't have a flank on him, and these trolls are in the front there. So if these golems, whichever unit of trolls they charge, if they don't kill it, they're going to get flanked. And that's not a good time for anybody. The Bruiser is there as backup. The Bruiser, if you look at where all my units are hanging out as well, the Bruiser is on the borderline of all the 2 quadrants, or the 2 sections of the table there, so it could easily hop into either of those. The trolls and the Giant are in my opponent's section here. These trolls are in there. So they're going to start to maneuver over the next turn to see where they're going to finally end up in this game, because we've both got, my opponent's got 3 scoring units left, I've got 4 at this stage. So we have the half-breed champion and the Grotesques charging the Giant. The Golems decide they're going to try and take out some of the trolls. I don't know whether that's the best choice or not. Maybe backing up, trying to hold their central area. I don't know, because if the trolls pile in there, then they're going to lose it anyway. But they're going to get flanked there, which is not going to be fun. And the Bruiser's there as well to help. Jan decides to come in on the Giant as well, so all the scoring units are in this tiny little area. And let's see what it accomplishes. 6 wounds on the trolls, so not enough to worry them. The Giant is dead though. So what am I going to do in this position? We've both got 3 scoring units left each. And I hope that I can kill this unit with a triple charge. And if I can, I'm in a really good position because I can back up one unit, maybe into this area, or in fact I don't even have to throw the Bruiser in, I can leave him here to score this area, charge those two in, and claim this area, and let my opponent have my table section here, and then I win 3-2 on victory points. So there we go. So whatever happens, if it ends on turn 6, I'm just going to win, because I'll have this table section even if I don't kill the golems. My opponent will have this one, and I'll have this one. So if it ends on turn 6, I win regardless. So I do manage to kill them, and I do manage to trombone off the grotesques as well. So at this stage, it's pretty much impossible for me to lose, or even draw this game. Actually, the only way I could lose or draw would be if I march all my units into an area where they only score 1 point, and Jan goes into my central area and scores 2, but that would be the stupidest decision ever in Kings of War history. So we do get a turn 7, so more chance for killing, so my opponent doesn't really succeed with much and then gets scorched off the table with the half-breed champion gets killed, I think. Does it? Oh, maybe it got wavered. Can't remember what that token means. Oh, it actually killed a war trombone, that's why I ended up there. And then on my turn, it gets, let's see. Yeah, I shoot it in my turn then. But, nope, spoiler alert, it doesn't die. So obviously I win, because this troll unit is holding my central area. And the Bruiser, knowing that all he has to do is just contest this area, because both of those are worth 1 unit strength. If Jan had been worth more, then the Bruiser would have just stayed in here and not contested it, so I would have just won 2-1. So as it is, I win 1-0 for holding my own section, because in this tournament you don't get more points the more you win the scenario by. So that's a massive win. We both killed a lot actually. My opponent got a healthy score and I got 19 points, which is only 1 off maximum for the round. So I didn't get any 20s in the tournament. I got a 19, a 17, a 17, 11, which was the loss, and then a 19. So 4 wins out of 5. Let's see what that's worth to me. Bum bum bum. It's worth 3rd place. So remember, this tournament also factors in hobby and sportsmanship scores as well. So those weigh quite heavily compared to other tournaments in this country, at least. They're not the majority of the points or even close to that, but they're definitely a factor. So because it was very close at the top of the table, and I was definitely one of those players up there, just on battle points, I was pretty close to the top anyway. I think the person who got most battle points ended up outside the podium places, presumably due to things like lower painting score, which obviously you know before you're going to an event. So if you look at the rules pack and see that you get bonus points for having, for example, advanced basing on your army, and you just turn up with like grey bases, then obviously you're asking for trouble. I don't think anyone had an unpainted army, but there are ways you can get those extra points. And sportsmanship as well. They haven't released the breakdown of the sportsmanship scores, so I don't know who got how many votes. I don't know how many I got. Hopefully my bribery worked, because I took along some baked goods to offer to my opponents as well. So hopefully that helped me. And not only did I get 3rd place, I also got the Best John Award for the Best Living Legend of Kung Fu Faulkes, which is, let me just bring up the thumbnail, this model here. So this, when I was picking a living legend, I wasn't really looking at their rules. I was thinking, which one can I actually make? Can I make a character that fits in with one of these descriptions? And I looked through my box and I thought, actually yes, from the Mantic bargain box, I've got this random Hellboy dude who's wearing vaguely kung fu-ish looking gear, apart from maybe the armor bits. And I could easily sculpt a little green stuff headband on him and then paint it up nicely. Yes, let's go for that. So I got a trophy for that as well, so that's very nice. Let's just linger on the trophy picture for a bit longer, shall we? So all in all, how do I feel about the Goblin list? I think the Troll list, very juicy. I think the practice game I had with it was helpful, because not only did I feel that the chaff Moorbeasts and the Fleabag Sniffs didn't do that much, my opponent agreed and felt that something hard-hitting would be very scary. So I took all the chaff out and put in 2 giants. And even the game I lost, I don't think any of my opponents really dealt with having that much fighty stuff to deal with. Because in the game I lost, I even outkilled my opponent. So there's just so many units that are dangerous. Whatever you attack, there's always something that's looking at you at an angle that's not favourable to you. So even if it's just a Bruiser, 125 points, if it looks at your flank, hitting on 3s, that can easily kill a regiment of something. And that's just the Bruisers. So the Troll Hordes and the Giants, obviously, if they get into a flank, they're going to kill an awful lot. So there's a lot of meat in that list, and it's got good mopping up as well. The Trombones, even ignoring their mass power that they can just dish out if they all converge on one target, even one Trombone can mop up a unit that's taken a few wounds at the end of the game. And the Lightning Bolt helps with that as well, helps clear out a little bit of chaff from the enemy. The King with the Headstrong Aura did really well. He actually helped out in a lot of combats. He's not often a target because he's less scary, he has less of a scary reputation than a War Trombone even. So people often didn't attack the King at all. So he was able to help out quite a lot. He's only 100 points, same for the Wizards. They both did a good job. I think everything in the list pulled its own weight. I normally would consider things like Mincers in the past, but I think Giants are much improved in this edition. You're paying more points for them, but they have a more reliable number of attacks now, with it being d6 plus 8 instead of 6. So I find that very helpful. And you can't really argue with Crushing Strength 4, can you? So against big Defense 6 things, very handy. Lots of Crushing Strength in my army, and it even helped. It didn't help as such against the massive zombie army, but I did still manage to chew through them by boxing them in nicely. So all in all, very successful tournament. 4 wins, 1 loss, only had to give away 1 Goblin body part. And this has been a lovely 2-parter video, which hopefully people have enjoyed. Don't forget to fling all your money at me through Patreon if you want to keep the lights on this channel at this beacon of joy during these dark, turbulent times in the world. You want to keep that lighthouse beacon shining bright through the fog of hobby misery to keep you motivated and tactically sound going forward in your games. I think that's enough of the sell. Don't forget to check out the Facebook group, Discord server, Twitter, subscribe obviously, and all that good stuff down in the description. Thanks to all the patrons who would normally be thanked with the little scrolling text in the battle reports now, but because this was such a mega video, then apparently the streaming software doesn't allow any of that fancy stuff without crashing right now because there's too many high-res images, but they are well thanked. And what's coming up on this channel after this? Well, I've got the Andy and Rem show on Tuesday for all you Age of Sigmar fans out there. There will be a little bit of Kings of War chat on there as well, I'm sure, but lots of AOS releases this week going up for pre-order. Also, I'm going to be reviewing the KR backpack that I took to this tournament to transport my army, which I brought my army back on the train in. That was a bit of an awkwardly put together sentence, but you get the idea. More battle reports, more Kings of War, there's going to be more tournaments coming up, and I'll talk a bit about general tournament thoughts as well in this. We're not fully post-pandemic world, are we? But easing our way back into tournaments, so I'll discuss that a bit tomorrow on the Andy and Rem show, I think, so you can look forward to that. And I think all that remains to be said, other than make sure you leave some tactical words of wisdom in the comments or anything that you maybe picked up from this video. If you spotted any rules that were incorrect, feel free to point that out as well, that's always useful, so people don't keep making the same mistakes. And good night out there, whatever you are.